Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Chairwoman Shapiro, Governors, and Chancellor Greenstein for this opportunity to update everyone on some of the state system's diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The slide that you see on the screen right now presents the 5 strategic priorities the board affirmed as part of the DEI strategic framework presented during the April 15th meeting. I will use our time this afternoon to share information on progress we've made in some of these areas since the July meeting. Overall, and with President's leadership, we continue to work across all universities to co-create a detailed and goal-oriented plan for each of the strategic priorities you see on the screen. We have established and convened a DEI action network comprised of faculty, Chief Diversity Officers, Chief Information and Technology Officers, Chief Academic Officers, Chief Financial Officers, Chief Student Affairs Officers, and others to advance this foundational work. I can share with you today a few high-level takeaways from a convening that took place on the campus of Shippensburg University, October 3rd through the 5th, in addition to other work occurring across the system. I look forward to bringing our recommendations to the board at a future meeting after they are vetted and endorsed by the president, the presidents, and the chancellor. While we are focusing on all of our strategic priorities, we've made notable progress to move the needle to create inclusive communities, expand curriculum diversity, and build enabling infrastructures. Please be reminded, however, that all of the strategic priorities are connected and they are key to system redesign and sustainability, including enrollment, persistence, and graduation outcomes. Looking at efforts to build inclusive communities, the Working Group on Understanding the First Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act to Improve Campus Climates completed its work this week. And President Long is leading efforts to submit a draft report with recommendations for consideration to the Executive Leadership Group, comprised of presidents and the chancellor, early next week. Big picture, the working group is recommending a portfolio approach to addressing issues of racism and other forms of harassment. The approach is grounded in the educational mission of our universities, but also recognizes the impacts that such incidents have on victims, impacts that impede their progress towards graduation and can have negative effects on their mental health. The portfolio approach entails 3 components at each university that would include expectations, education, and enforcement. To that end, there would be 1, clear statements of expectations that are consistent across the system, intentional education that is not only consistent with our purpose as educators, but remediates and reinforces civic responsibilities, and finally, consistent and enforceable student codes of conduct and system policies effective at each state system university. Again, a full report is forthcoming, but I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the entire working group that committed their time and critical thinking to get us to this point. The group was comprised of faculty, staff, students, and administrators, and they are to be commended for their dedication. Statewide system training, DEI system training for students, faculty, and staff is another effort we've undertaken to improve campus climates. In April of this year, we implemented a statewide DEI training for faculty, staff, and students. Interim reporting on completion rates vary by campus. A full report of completion rates disaggregated by universities will be available at the end of the spring semester. I am proud to say that we have a near 100% completion rate in the Office of the Chancellor. I completed the training as part of a trial, so I am not in that completion reporting. Next, a system-wide climate survey is the last example that I will share that supports our efforts to improve campus climates today. In late January of 2022, we will administer the first ever system-wide climate survey using a third-party vendor to ensure anonymity. Customized surveys will be administered to students, faculty, and staff in an effort to gather important information about how these groups experience the state system and to inform our efforts to make improvements as indicated by the data. The collaboration will be led by the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officers across the system. This is an important first step towards improving campus climates, and I will keep you apprised of what we learn in future meetings. Looking at efforts to achieve greater curriculum diversity, I can report momentum, and I am especially encouraged by conversations with Faculty Council chaired by Dr. Jamie Phillips. Work to develop curriculum that reflects the human, societal, and intellectual diversity that affirms the humanity of our students and prepares all students for the diversity that awaits them in the workplace and beyond is currently underway. Curriculum diversity emerged as a strong priority with concrete recommendations during the DEI Action Network retreat. And I was moved by Dr. Phillips' proclamation that diversity, equity, and inclusion is core to the work of the Faculty Council during this academic year. In support of these efforts, Dr. Kate Akers and her advanced data analytics team created a baseline survey of system-wide academic programs with the DEI lens that provides insights for the work ahead to achieve greater curriculum diversity. Dr. Phillips is here, and I just would like to ask, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Can you guys hear me okay? I really appreciate that. First, I just want to say that I went to the retreat. It was a 3-day retreat, and it was fantastic. You know, I've been in the system for over 2 decades, and we've been working on DEI, even though we called it different things at different times. And we've always been extremely unsuccessful in achieving the goals that we wanted to achieve. And so for the first time, I feel optimistic, right? And I really appreciate it. Hiring Denise was an act of genius. She's a force of nature. You have to have somebody that's going to drive this. The fact that we had so many individuals at the highest levels, provost, CDOs, CIOs, all involved in the workshop, along with faculty members from the Faculty Council, is indicative of just how much effort we're going to put into this. I think that we've got a measurable system, something that has metrics that are available, the baseline that's going to be created where we can tag something as being a diverse major or minor or course, and then associate that with demographic data to see whether or not students taking those classes in those majors and in those minors are progressing at a higher rate than students who are not. While we also input things into that process through professional development of faculty, professional development of staff to make sure that they are bringing new ideas to the courses, new ideas to their campuses, and using those ideas that they learn from other faculty members as a way to provide the positive motion that we need to actually improve things on campuses. So I'm high on what we're doing right now, and this is the goal of the Faculty Council, our primary goal to try to achieve this over the course of the next couple of years. I'll be done in May as Faculty Council Chair, because that would be only appropriate. But I've already done this for a couple of years, and we already agreed that I need to move on, right? So somebody else needs to take up the reins. But I will continue on with Faculty Council regardless of that. And the Faculty Council will be moving to try to make sure that this happens. I think we can show growth, I would say, within 5 years. You know, if we fund immediately our FDI programs, our Frederick Douglass programs, we start training faculty up in the ways that we've been talking about, we can demonstrate in a very quantitative fashion success. And that's the goal, and we will achieve that goal.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. So looking at efforts to build enabling infrastructures, I'll start by highlighting the system-wide Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit that will be held. Next slide, Randy, I can take, thank you. I'll start by highlighting the virtual DEI Summit that will take place November 3rd through the 5th. The summit will bring together faculty, students, and staff from across the system, as well as external researchers and practitioners to engage in timely discussions across a wide range of topics. More than 700 people have already registered for the summit, and more than 200 have registered for the pre-summit webinar with Ijeoma Oluo, author of the best-selling book, So You Want to Talk About Race. I truly hope that governors, trustees, and legislatures will join us too. Registration information is there on the slide, and you can also find registration information on the state system's DEI website. Recognizing that all state system stakeholders have a role to play in advancing DEI for economic, workforce, societal, and moral reasons, I remain intentional about stakeholder engagement. To this end, on Friday, I will participate in the PAC meeting, and I look forward to talking with them about DEI work across the system, as well as exploring ways that they can leverage their roles as trustees to achieve our shared DEI goals. As another example of critical stakeholder engagement, a couple of weeks ago, I was invited to a meeting of state system alumni to listen to their concerns and to share some of the promising actions taking place across the system. We have to remember that alumni are important stakeholders, and I was enlightened by the discussion with this group of primarily African-American alumni. I valued the conversation, and I hope that they will invite me to a future meeting. In closing, I will close by noting a general consensus taking place around the notion of systemness as an approach to DEI policy and practice. It is a good strategy. We recognize that each campus is unique, but there are some ideas, principles, and practices emerging that are recommended for standardization with the expectation that presidents and their staffs will make adjustments that meet the needs of their campuses. I look forward to ongoing collaboration with my colleagues across the system to develop and fund goal-oriented implementation plans for all of our strategic priorities. The DEI Action Network has begun this work, and we will be excited to share a more complete plan in the near future. It's purposeful also to note that infrastructure building will continue to be informed by an increasingly robust data system. Again, under the leadership of Dr. Kate Akers and institutional researchers across the system, we have begun to take a deeper dive into employee data by bargaining units and disaggregated by race and gender. We are also mining deeper into student data, analyzing the entire pipeline from application to acceptance to enrollment. We already collect data on graduation and persistent rates, and we will continue to use this data and other data, some yet to be identified, to achieve equitable student outcomes and close any opportunity gaps that may emerge. Lastly, I will share that all of the information just presented will be incorporated into a state system 5-year strategic plan built on the framework affirmed in April. This will be a major topic of discussion during the upcoming DEI Board of Advisors meeting. The DEI Board of Advisors is strengthened by the membership of President Aaron Walton and Governor Larry Skinner, and I remain grateful to them for their steadfast guidance and support. So with that, I say, governors, legislatures, presidents, faculty, staff, and chancellor, thank you for your continued support for this most consequential work.